They thought he was just another poor kid with no future. But when his fingers touched the keys, everything changed. This is the story of a 12-year-old boy who turned a cruel joke into a standing ovation, and in doing so revealed the soul of a genius hidden in plain sight. Malik Thompson wasn't the kind of kid people noticed. He didn't talk much at school, he wasn't loud, he didn't cause trouble, and he definitely didn't fit in with the private school crowd that filled the shiny hallways of Franklin Academy. His clothes were a little faded, his backpack had a broken zipper, and he always seemed to be carrying something too big for his small frame. The weight of 1,000 dreams he didn't yet have the words to explain. Malik lived with his mother, Rochelle, in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the south side of Atlanta. The apartment sat above a corner store that smelled like old fryer grease and warm soda. They didn't have much. No air conditioning, a leaky faucet in the kitchen, and a second-hand couch that squeaked whenever anyone sat down. But it was home. Rochelle worked 2 jobs, mornings at the hospital cafeteria, nights cleaning offices downtown. She rarely slept more than 4 hours a night, but somehow she always made sure Malik had a hot meal and a clean shirt for school. What people didn't know about Malik was that inside his quiet, skinny frame lived a symphony. He had fallen in love with music at 6 years old, the day his teacher brought a small keyboard to class for show and tell. Malik had waited until everyone left the room, then sneaked back and touched one of the keys. The sound was tiny, but to him it felt like magic, like he had just opened a secret door to another world. Since then, he had taught himself to play on whatever he could find. At first, it was just the plastic toy keyboard from Goodwill that only played in C major. Then it was the beat-up upright piano at the public library, its pedals broken and half the keys stuck. Malik didn't mind. He sat for hours watching YouTube videos, copying hand movements, rewinding the same section again and again until it made sense. He had no sheet music, no tutor, and no one to guide him, just raw passion and relentless curiosity. Malik's fingers moved like they knew stories his voice didn't. He could take a simple melody and twist it into something rich and aching. He'd play Bach, then slide into Duke Ellington, then stitch the two together like they belonged in the same century. He didn't do it to impress anyone. He did it because it made the world feel right. But none of that mattered at Franklin Academy. Malik had earned a scholarship to attend the elite school after acing a series of placement exams. But in a sea of designer sneakers and chauffeur drop-offs, he stood out in all the wrong ways. His classmates didn't understand him, and most didn't try. To them, he was just the charity kid, the one who brought peanut butter and jelly for lunch and didn't have an iPhone. Still, Malik kept his head down and focused. He didn't need their approval. He had his music and his mother. That was enough. Most nights, while Rochelle dozed on the couch in her scrubs, Malik plugged in his tiny keyboard and slipped on a pair of headphones. In the soft glow of the kitchen light, his fingers danced across plastic keys, painting dreams no one else could hear. Sometimes he imagined playing for big crowds. Other times he imagined playing just for her, for the woman who gave up everything so he could chase something. Then came the fundraiser. It was supposed to be a simple school event, a chance for wealthy parents to donate even more money and for kids to show off their talents. Malik had planned to help clean up afterward, nothing more. But fate, as always, had a different idea. And as he stood in the back of the auditorium that night, watching kids rehearse and parents sip champagne under crystal chandeliers, Malik had no idea his life was about to change. He had no idea that within the hour, a cruel challenge, meant to humiliate him, would become his greatest stage. He had no idea the joke was about to be on them. The gymnasium had been transformed into something almost unrecognizable. White tablecloths draped over long banquet tables, fairy lights strung from the basketball hoops, and a glossy black grand piano gleaming under a spotlight at the front of the stage. It was Franklin Academy's annual Night of Talent and Giving, where students performed, parents wrote checks, and everyone patted themselves on the back for supporting diversity. Malik stood in the back, clutching a stack of folding chairs. He hadn't planned on staying long. His mother had just finished her second shift and was resting in the car outside, parked in the loading zone with the windows cracked. Malik had promised he'd help clean up a little, maybe grab some leftover cookies if they hadn't all been taken. He was used to being invisible at these things, moving tables, stacking chairs, staying out of the way. But that night he wasn't invisible for long. "Hey, Malik!" The voice cut through the hum of conversation. It was Chase Langford, the same kid who once asked Malik if his shoes were vintage or just poor. Chase was dressed in a crisp navy blazer and designer loafers, holding a sparkling water in one hand and a smirk in the other. "You're the music guy, right?" Chase called out, loud enough for the nearby parents to hear. "I heard you mess around on the piano sometimes in the library. Want to show us what you've got?" A few heads turned. Malik froze. The air in the room shifted, curious, amused, dismissive. Chase's friends, huddled nearby in matching khakis and pastel shirts, snickered. One of them muttered something about free entertainment. Another whispered, "This is going to be good." Malik looked down at his sneakers, scuffed and 2 sizes too big, then back at the piano gleaming under the spotlight. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The joke was obvious. Get the poor kid to perform, let him embarrass himself, then laugh about it later. Classic setup, classic Chase. But something in Malik didn't flinch. Instead, he glanced across the gym and found his mother. She'd slipped inside without him noticing, still in her scrubs. Hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She stood silently, holding a paper cup of punch, watching him. Her face didn't show panic, just presence, steady, patient, like always. Malik stepped forward. "You sure?" Chase asked, eyebrows raised. "It's a real piano, not like those keyboards you probably use." Malik didn't respond. He walked past the tables, past the whispers, past the smirks. His hands were trembling, but his feet moved like they had already made the decision. The gym went quiet. A few people leaned in, expecting awkward notes, maybe a clumsy rendition of Twinkle Twinkle. Parents sipped wine amused. Students pulled out their phones. Malik sat on the piano bench. For a second, he just stared at the keys. Ivory and black, sharp and smooth. They felt cool under his fingertips, like home. He closed his eyes, and then he played. The first few notes floated through the gym like a whisper, gentle, uncertain, like someone knocking on the edge of silence. The room, still full of smirks and stifled laughter, started to quiet. Malik's hands trembled at first. He'd never played a piano like this before. Real, heavy, alive. The keys were smooth, weighted, nothing like the sticky old ones at the library. But as he found his rhythm, something in him unlocked. He closed his eyes again. And this time, he didn't just play, he spoke. His fingers moved with purpose, not perfection, but passion. He didn't play a pop song or something safe. No, Malik launched into a haunting progression of chords, something jazz-infused with the echo of old soul. It was raw and improvisational, yet calculated in all the ways that matter. The melody twisted and soared, dipping into dissonance, then rising into something sweet and aching. People stopped mid-sip. Conversations died out. Phones were lowered, forgotten. All eyes turned to the boy at the piano. Even Chase, even the music director of Franklin Academy, who had once denied Malik's request to audition for the student ensemble because he wasn't part of the official program, was now frozen in place, mouth slightly open. Malik didn't see any of them. In his mind, he was somewhere else, somewhere without chandeliers or judgment, somewhere quiet, maybe a rooftop in the rain, maybe a cracked sidewalk with streetlights buzzing above, maybe just his kitchen, headphones on, his mother humming in the next room. He didn't notice the tears welling in her eyes at the back of the gym. He didn't hear the collective intake of breath when he shifted into a minor key and began layering melodies, lines that should have clashed, but somehow danced together. It was the kind of moment people couldn't name, but could feel in their chest. Something more than sound, something holy. And yet in the middle of that beauty came the tension. Chase's smirk was gone, but his pride wasn't. He leaned over to his friend, whispering something sharp and fast. The friend nodded, pulled out his phone, and started filming again. This time not out of ridicule, but with a new intent: control. If Malik was going to shine, they would own the footage, spin it, frame it, reduce it. Because for boys like Chase, power wasn't just about having money. It was about deciding who got to be special and who didn't. But in that moment, none of it touched Malik. He kept playing, kept pouring himself into the keys. This was his language. This was the voice he never got to use when people talked over him, labeled him, dismissed him. Every note was a refusal. Every shift in tempo, a defiance. He didn't need permission to be brilliant. He didn't need applause to be real. He was already enough. And by the time the final chord rang out, hanging in the air like a question that didn't need an answer, the room was dead silent, and Malik was finally seen. The silence after the last note was almost louder than the music itself. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. It was as if the entire gymnasium had been suspended in time, held in place by the echo of something they couldn't quite explain. Malik sat there, hands still hovering above the keys, chest rising and falling, his heart pounding so loudly he swore they could hear it. Then slowly, one pair of hands began to clap. It was Mrs. Delaney, the school's longtime librarian. She stood near the exit, tears streaking her cheeks, clapping steadily, deliberately, like she knew she was witnessing something sacred. A second later, another clap followed, then another, and another. Within seconds, the room erupted into applause. Not polite, not obligatory, real applause. Thunderous, rising, uncontainable. A wave of sound crashed over Malik, flooding the room with a kind of collective awe. Parents stood, teachers stood, even some of Chase's friends, faces slack with disbelief, joined in the ovation. Malik blinked, overwhelmed, unsure if this was still real. And then he saw her, his mother, Rochelle, standing straighter than he'd ever seen her. Her hands covered her mouth, eyes shining with pride, and something else. Relief, maybe. Gratitude. The kind of look a mother gives when she realizes the world has finally seen what she's always known. Malik's throat tightened. He looked back at the piano, as if to ask it, "Was that enough?" And that's when the man approached. Tall, gray suit, salt and pepper beard. He moved through the crowd with quiet authority. Dr. Langston Harper, renowned pianist, head of the Atlanta Conservatory of Music. He'd been invited as a guest judge for the event, though no one really expected him to pay much attention. He usually didn't. But now he was standing right in front of Malik, eyes locked in, unreadable. "You arranged that yourself?" he asked, voice calm but weighted. Malik nodded, unsure if his voice would work. Dr. Harper looked down at the piano, then back at Malik. "I've taught students for 30 years, trained prodigies, worked with orchestras, seen talent in every form. But what you just played wasn't talent. That was truth." The room went quiet again. Dr. Harper continued, pulling a card from his coat pocket. "We have a place for you. Full scholarship. We'll start with summer intensives. If you're ready, we'll talk full enrollment. Your call." Malik stared at the card. It shimmered like gold in his hand. Behind him, the piano still hummed with the memory of what had just happened. In front of him, the entire school, parents, teachers, even the ones who never knew his name, now looked at him differently, not as the quiet kid from the wrong side of town, not as a scholarship case, but as an artist. And somewhere in the crowd, Chase Langford stood frozen, his camera phone still recording, but his face pale and stunned. The smirk was gone, replaced by something Malik couldn't quite place. Maybe shame, maybe fear, or maybe, for the first time, respect. Either way, Malik didn't need it. He had already won. In the days that followed, Malik's name echoed through the halls of Franklin Academy in a way it never had before. Not as a whisper behind his back, but as a name spoken with awe, even reverence. Clips of his performance flooded social media. Someone had uploaded a full recording titled "The Boy Who Silenced the Room," and within 24 hours, it had over 300,000 views. Comments poured in, people praising his talent, sharing their own stories of being underestimated, others tagging musicians, teachers, even celebrities. The school's administration, previously indifferent to Malik's existence, suddenly couldn't schedule meetings fast enough. He was asked to represent the school at an upcoming art showcase, offered private lessons with the music director, and even nominated for a Student Achievement Award. For the first time, they saw what had always been there. But more importantly, Malik didn't need them to. At home, things started changing too. The call from the Atlanta Conservatory came just 2 days later. Dr. Harper followed up personally, arranging a visit to the campus for Malik and his mother. Rochelle took the day off work, something she hadn't done in years, and wore her best church shoes. When they walked through the conservatory's glass doors hand in hand, she whispered, "We made it, baby," like it was both a prayer and a victory. They toured grand rehearsal halls, saw rows of practice rooms, met professors who spoke to Malik like he was already one of them. For the first time, the idea of a future filled with music didn't feel distant or impossible. It felt real, tangible, like something Malik could reach out and play with both hands. But he didn't let the attention go to his head. He still visited the library piano, the one with the broken pedals and chipped keys, still practiced at home, late at night, with headphones and dim lights while his mother slept. And he still walked the halls of Franklin Academy with his head down, not out of shame, but out of quiet focus. He didn't need to be loud. His music spoke louder than anything else. As for Chase Langford, the silence between them said enough. There were no more jokes, no more smug comments in the hallway. In fact, Chase barely looked Malik in the eye now. Maybe it was embarrassment. Maybe he didn't know how to face someone he tried to humiliate, only to watch them become undeniable. Whatever it was, Malik didn't dwell on it, because he had bigger things to think about now. New pieces to write, new skills to master. His future wasn't something vague or far away anymore. It was here, and every day he sat down at a piano, he got closer to it. One evening, just before bed, Rochelle sat beside him while he practiced. She didn't say much, just watched, a soft smile on her face. "Do you know how proud I am of you?" she asked. Malik looked up, his fingers pausing mid-scale. "I didn't do it for them," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. "That's why it mattered." And in that moment, more than applause, more than viral videos, more than scholarships, Malik understood something deeper. He didn't just prove them wrong, he proved himself right. Some stories aren't just about talent, they're about truth, the kind that lives in the quiet corners, in the overlooked kids and the ones nobody sees until they're forced to. Malik Thompson didn't ask to be on that stage. He didn't beg for a spotlight or a moment of fame. In fact, the challenge was meant to humiliate him, to remind him where he belonged. But instead, Malik showed the world what happens when you give someone underestimated a piano and a chance. His story reminds us that greatness often wears simple shoes. That genius doesn't always come wrapped in wealth or privilege. It can live in tiny apartments, in kids teaching themselves from YouTube, in hands that practice in silence while the rest of the world sleeps. Because talent is not reserved for the chosen. It's found in those who choose to keep going, who choose to create, even when no one is clapping. Malik didn't just play music that night. He spoke a truth deeper than words, that your voice matters, that your story is valid, that no one gets to define your worth but you. In a world so quick to label, so quick to dismiss, Malik became a reminder of what we miss when we judge a book by its cover or a boy by his zip code. And let's not forget, sometimes the very stage meant to shame you becomes the place you rise. Sometimes the joke turns out to be on the ones who doubted you, and sometimes all it takes is a single moment, a song, a note, a choice, to remind the world, I've been here all along. So the next time you see someone quiet, someone overlooked, someone underestimated, remember Malik. Remember that inside the smallest voice can live the loudest truth. Because when the world finally hears what you've been holding in your heart all this time, it listens and it never forgets.